All right, guys. So, absolutely wild story coming out right now from the North Carolina governor's race, where, as you can see here from CNN, there is new reporting on the Republican nominee in this election. This guy, Mark Robinson, who reportedly years ago participated in online porn forums where he said things like, quote, "I'm a black Nazi," in all caps. "I'm a black Nazi." So somehow, this is really only scratching the surface of this guy's history. We'll get to more of the specifics of this new report that just dropped here, but just as a reminder for everybody, we're going to get to this new advertisement that was just released by the Kamala HQ account here on some of what their messaging is going to be in North Carolina now with these new revelations. But this is a candidate who was fully backed, fully endorsed by Donald Trump. In fact, Donald Trump said that he was like MLK, Martin Luther King Jr., on steroids. That's how Trump described this candidate who he chose. Now, we know that Trump doesn't exactly have a great track record when it comes to selecting and endorsing candidates across American elections, but this guy is, man, even like an aberration from the insane and unhinged candidates that we've covered before. But again, this is nothing new. This was an article from March of earlier this year, where they say here from the Huffington Post that Mark Robinson's bizarre ramble, "I absolutely want to go back to the America where women couldn't vote." So again, this new reporting that we just got is not like the first unhinged or insane statement that we've gotten from this guy, Mark Robinson. He said he didn't want women to be able to vote in this country. He also said here from The Advocate that transgenderism, homosexuality, and any of that filth. Robinson said during a 2021 sermon that there's no reason that anybody anywhere in America should be telling any child about transgenderism, homosexuality, or any of that filth. And yes, I call it filth, he doubled down. And if you don't like that, I call it filth, come and see me and I'll explain it to you. He also said that LGBTQ people are maggots and flies. And he also said that the movie Black Panther was made by an agnostic Jew and a satanic Marxist. So again, these unhinged and insane statements are nothing new. The reason I bring up those previous statements that we already knew about is because to me, it's like I see these new allegations coming out and I'm like, I've already read about some similar shit that this guy has said in the past, in the pretty recent past. So it's not as if this guy was a totally normal, standard Republican candidate for the governorship in North Carolina, and suddenly this is some breaking news. To me, this is not surprising at all that a few years back he would have posted some shit like this on some porn forums. This should not be surprising to anybody. The real question here is, how did he win the Republican primary for the North Carolina governor's position? Right? That should be the real question that I think conservatives are asking themselves internally, is how do we allow this guy to rise to this position in the first place, given his previous comments, right? Because apparently now the recent stuff, calling himself a black Nazi, that's enough for Republicans to say, okay, maybe you need to drop out or we need to replace you at the final hour, which it doesn't look like they were able to do in time. But because last night, by the way, was like the last chance for them to potentially replace him as the nominee on the ticket. But this is what it took. Not any of the previous statements that I just showed you guys. This is what it took. Well, let's go ahead and get into it. They say that Mark Robinson, the controversial and socially conservative Republican nominee for the governor of North Carolina, made a series of inflammatory comments on a pornography website's message board more than a decade ago, in which he referred to himself as a black, again, all caps, Nazi, exclamation point, and expressed support for reinstating slavery. For reinstating slavery. A CNN K-File investigation found. They say despite a recent history of anti-transgender rhetoric, Robinson said, here we go, he enjoyed watching transgender pornography. A recent review of an archived message found in which he also referred to himself as a perv. The comments, which Robinson denies making, okay, predate his entry into politics and the current stint as North Carolina's lieutenant governor. They were made under a username that CNN was able to identify as Robinson by matching a litany of biographical details and a shared email address between the two. Now, if you guys are questioning whether or not this is actually the online porn forum account of this specific Mark Robinson, there should be no question at this point, okay? I've looked into all of the details that were reported in this piece and many other pieces as well. This guy, I mean, you can see it here from the pictures, guys. He was using the same username across multiple different platforms. Many of these were tied directly to his personal email address. Many of them were tied to his specific full name that he put on these accounts for some reason. Now, personally, I think if you are like registering on porn accounts and you're putting your full name and email address and location and social security number, like, you've already fucked up. You've already gone so far beyond fucking up at that point. You should never get to that point in the first place. But he somehow did. And now he's trying to turn around and say that, well, this is like AI that's making it seem like these were my accounts all the way back from like the early 2000s. Somehow AI went back in time, created these accounts, put them in his name with his email address, and did this to sabotage him because AI knew that in the future he would be running for the North Carolina Senate position. The excuses that he's making, the evidence behind backing up that this is actually him that we're talking about on these forums is just overwhelming. It's just overwhelming. They continue. They say that many of Robinson's comments were gratuitously sexual and lewd in nature. They were made between 2008 and 2012 on the Nude Africa pornographic website that includes a message board. The comments were made under the username Mini Soldier, without the I or the E, a moniker that Robinson used frequently online. Robinson listed his full name, again, his full name, on his profile for Nude Africa, as well as an email address that he has used on numerous websites across the internet for decades. And again, here are some of these accounts. They continue down here. They say that publicly, Robinson has fiercely argued that people should use bathrooms that only correspond to the gender that they were assigned at birth. He also said that transgender women should be arrested for using women's restrooms. Yet privately, under the username Mini Soldier on Nude Africa, Robinson graphically described his own sexual arouser as an adult from the memory of secretly peeping on women in a public gym in the showers as a 14-year-old. Robinson recounted the story as a memory that he still fantasized about, saying, quote, "I came to a spot that was a dead end but had two big vent covers over it, exclamation point. It just so happened that it overlooked the showers, again, exclamation point. I sat there for about an hour, what the fuck, and watched as several girls came in and showered," he wrote on Nude Africa. They also point out here that CNN is not publishing the graphic sexual details of his story. What the fuck? What the fuck? You are posting on public pornographic forums with your full name and email address and social security number on these accounts. And you're posting about how when you were younger, you were hiding in the vents to view nude women in public gym showers. What the fuck? They continue. Here's another quote. They say, "I went peeping again the next morning," he wrote, "but after that I went back and the ladder was locked. So those 2 times were the only times I got to do it. Ah, memories. Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point." Holy shit. They continue. It gets worse. Here's what he had to say. Quote, "I like watching trainee on girl porn. That's fucking hot. This is what he wrote, guys. That's fucking hot. It takes the man out while leaving the man in, Robinson wrote. And yeah, I'm a perv too. So listen, if you are somebody who happens to like watching transgender porn, that's totally fine. I have no issue with that. I believe in people's freedom to watch whatever porn that they want to watch in their personal life. The issue here comes in where Robinson, this candidate, is extremely transphobic in his politics. So that's where the issue comes in. Nobody would give a shit if you were a random citizen who happened to be watching transgender-related pornography. But when you're a core part, I would say, of your politics is anti-trans rhetoric, and then you're going on online porn forums and talking about how much you love trans porn, there comes a bit of an issue there, right? They continue. He said, and this is in response to some of these allegations about his online accounts, he said, "This is not us. These are not our words." I don't know who the our is in this conversation. It's just you, buddy. But he says, "This is not us. These are not our words. And this is not anything that is characteristic of me." He said, presented with the litany of evidence connecting him to the Mini Soldier username account on Nude Africa, Robinson said, "I am not going to get into the minutia of how somebody manufactured these salacious tabloid lies." So he is actually trying to say that this was like AI. This was like a totally manufactured tabloid salacious lie against him. Even though we have multiple different accounts, many of which with the same emails, many of which with his full name attached to them, he's trying to say that years ago, over a decade ago, somebody went back in time with artificial intelligence and manipulated this into a fake story against him. Who in the fuck is going to believe that? Now, it also turns out, by the way, that this Mini Soldier account that I have highlighted here was not only attached to some of these porn posts that he was making online, but it was also attached to other posts that he had where, for example, and I think this is maybe the reason that he has Mini Soldier as his username, he was posting images of what looked to be like, I don't know what you would call them, like action figures, World War II Nazi action figures that he had at his disposal for whatever reason, and he was taking pictures of them and posting them online on different forums. And so we also have this same account under the same name posting what looks to be like Nazi memorabilia. He also said, "We are not getting out of this race. There are people who are counting on us to win this race," according to Robinson. Now, I had my doubts at this point. I mean, even before all of this came out, I had my doubts that he was going to be able to win this election. But with this, you had a chance potentially last night or whenever the deadline was that you could have dropped out. A different standard, boring Republican could have taken your place. And maybe Republicans would have had a shot. But I would like to hope, I guess, that if I have any sort of shred or faith left in American politics, that a guy who has called himself openly a black Nazi and who has posted the kinds of things that I just showed you guys, that this guy would not be able to become the next governor of North Carolina. I would love to say that. I would hope that that's the reality. But, I mean, I guess there's maybe even still a small chance that this guy could win the election. I doubt it at this point. I would love to doubt it at this point, but, man, I just don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think that this might be the nail in the coffin, and this might secure a Democrat winning the North Carolina's governor's race. I would hope. You would hope. Maybe, right? But I don't know. Where are we at in this country? Could this guy still win this election? I have no idea. They continue. A history of controversial statements. Campaigning for lieutenant governor in 2020, Robinson advocated for a complete abortion ban without exceptions. He later expressed regret in 2022 after I think it became clear to Republicans that this was a little bit of a political liability for them. But in 2022, he expressed regret for paying for his now wife to have an abortion in the 1980s. So abortion for me, but not for thee. They say writing as Mini Soldier on Nude Africa in 2010, here's where it gets really bad. Robinson said that he did not care about a celebrity having an abortion. He said, I don't care. I just want to see the sex tape. It gets much worse. In another thread, commenters considered whether to believe the story of a woman who said that she was raped by her taxi driver while intoxicated. In response, Mark Robinson wrote, and the moral of the story, quote, don't fuck a white bitch. Holy shit. They continue because it gets worse, guys. It gets worse from there. Robinson, who would become the North Carolina first black governor if elected, also repeatedly maligned civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr., attacking him in such intense terms that a user accused him of being a white supremacist. He said, quote, get that fucking commie bastard off the National Mall. Robinson wrote in response to the dedication of the memorial to King in Washington, D.C. by then-President Barack Obama. He said, get that fucking commie bastard off the National Mall. He also said, quote, I'm not in the KKK. They don't let blacks join. But if I was in the KKK, I would have called him Martin Lucifer Coon. Martin Lucifer Coon. Holy shit. Now, we finish off down here. Robinson's history of controversial remarks, including mocking school shooting survivors, his past support for total abortion bans without exception for rape or incest, and disparaging the civil rights movement, have been a consistent theme in his race. Recent public polling shows that he is losing to Stein. So there you have it, guys. I mean, we have more quotes down here if we wanted to read some more. Again, he said that he is a black Nazi. He said that slavery is not bad. Some people need to be slaves. I wish they would bring slavery back. He also went on to say, I would take Hitler over any of the shit that's happening in Washington right now. He said that Martin Luther King Jr. was a commie bastard. He was worse than a maggot. He was a ho fucking phony and a huckster. So this is the Republican nominee as of right now. There's been no change, right? This is the Republican nominee for the governorship of North Carolina, a key swing state, by the way, coming up in the 2024 election between Kamala and Trump. And this is somebody, again, who Trump said, right, just as a reminder here, Trump said was better than Martin Luther King Jr. Now, we have an ad that just came out here, dropped by the Kamala HQ Twitter account, 30 seconds long. Let's go ahead and see how they responded to all of these insane statements here.
And he's been an unbelievable Lieutenant Governor, Mark Robinson.
For me, there's no compromise on abortion.
I think you're better than Martin Luther King.
We could pass a bill saying you can't have an abortion in North Carolina for any reason.
The abortion in this country is about killing a child because you aren't responsible enough to keep your skirt down.
I've been with him a lot. I've gotten to know him, and he's outstanding.
Donald Trump and Mark Robinson. They're both wrong for North Carolina.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
So not a bad ad, right? Not a bad ad. I mean, if your main concern, which is going to be one of the top concerns going into the 2024 election, is abortion rights, then that's pretty fucking hard hitting, right? A guy who previously said that he supported getting rid of abortion rights, even in cases of rape or incest or any sort of other exceptions, he's since walked that back. But this is a guy who I think it's pretty easy to run a campaign advertisement against, especially when you have Donald Trump, the leader of the Republican Party, the current campaign for president, who is coming out and praising him and saying that he is better than Martin Luther King Jr. Better than Martin Luther King Jr., the same guy who was trashing on Martin Luther King Jr., calling him a maggot, saying that he is a black Nazi, you know, saying that women shouldn't be able to vote in the past, saying that trans people, LGBTQ people broadly are filth in this country. I mean, this guy is, I'll take him at face value. He's a black Nazi. That's what this guy is. He said it himself. He openly posted this on his own accounts online. I don't think he ever realized that he was going to be running for the governor's position and that this would come out. But these are the things that he said. These are the things that he has said in the past. Now, of course, we also have conservative media like over on Fox News, where Jesse Waters is trying to distance himself from this guy and saying, oh, I've never heard of this guy. Who is this guy? Meanwhile, he just interviewed him recently. So, again, guys, this is all, I think, largely predictable, which is almost like the most disturbing aspect of all of this, which is that this guy, Mark Robinson, has had similar statements like this that have been publicly available in the past, right? Like, you could look at the new reporting that we just covered about him posting, I'm literally a black Nazi on porn forums or whatever. You could look at that and say, well, that's shocking. That's crazy. Of course he has to drop out now. But it's like, he's done Holocaust revisionism or Holocaust denial recently in the past. That was publicly known. He's called for women to not be able to vote recently in the past. That's been publicly known. We've known exactly who this guy is. That's not been a secret, right? And he was still, even with much of that public knowledge, able to win the Republican primary in North Carolina for the governor's race. So, like, the salacious details from this recent report should be noteworthy. They are noteworthy. But there should really be a deeper conversation, I feel like, happening here. Whereas, like, how does this guy become the Republican nominee for the governor's position? How is he this close to becoming an incredibly influential and powerful politician in this country when we've known who this guy is? We know that he's completely insane. We know that Trump has a bad track record, to say the least, when it comes to picking candidates that he loves, because his only metric for whether or not he likes a candidate is whether or not they bend the knee to him and they give him personal praise. It seems like at some point, maybe we should question, who are these guys? Where are these guys coming from? Are these guys trustworthy to put in high positions of power? Not that Democrats are all great or anything like that, but I mean, holy shit. This guy
has the best politics. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me, everyone is saying